Welcome back to the Valley to Peak Nutrition Podcast. We just recently wrapped up the 2025 Exo Mountain Gear Death Hike, where we returned to the Grand Canyon in our attempt to rack up 100 miles. Quick spoiler alert, obviously we survived, and we have recorded two separate podcasts to recount two separate events. This is the first of those with our good friend Gabriel from Ivory Holsters. Gabriel's story is unique in a lot of different ways. He dramatically improved his time this year. He accrued more miles than he did the previous year. He climbed more than he did the previous year. And just about everything that a guy could want from a return trip to the canyon. But maybe what's most remarkable about his story is the unwavering commitment that he made early on, that in spite of having every reason not to show up from a medical diagnosis he got just a couple of weeks before the actual hike, he was there and he crushed it. He joins us to discuss that and what changed for training for him this year to make him do better, his nutrition choices that changed, answer why he does the death hike, and we talk through a full account of the 2 days that he spent in Arizona, including getting sold a proverbial used car while making his trip down the South Rim. We'll have links to everything that we talk about in this episode, links to check out Gabriel, Ivory Holsters, as well as the training plan that he references from Atomic Athlete in our episode together. This is a free template. It's well worth a look if you're just starting to dabble in the world of formal training plans. And like I said, we'll link that in the show notes so you can check it out. But here is Gabriel and I discussing all of the events that led up to the Grand Canyon, his unwavering commitment, and why he feels like he crushed it this year compared to last. I am joined by Gabriel this week from Ivory Holsters. Gabriel, how's it going?
Oh, life is good, man. Life is good. What about you?
I'm doing good. I was really, really excited to do this. One, because you're one of my close friends, but two, just gives us a really great story to talk about. But for people who maybe aren't familiar with you or who haven't heard you on the other podcast, can you give kind of a brief rundown and introduction of who you are and what you do and
Yeah, no,
what is important?
just a dude trying to run a business and raise a bunch of little boys, and so I run Ivory Holsters, work with guys like you and Exo Mountain Gear and just amazing people in the industry to be able to put out a product that helps people kind of keep themselves a little safer in the backcountry. So we make custom pistol holsters and archery release holsters for guys that are and gals that are in the backcountry hunting and archery realm. I got a smoke show of a wife named Melissa. She's gonna hate that I said that. I love it though. So she's given me four sweet little boys, and so yeah, we're just trying to do what God wants us to do in the way of like running the business and scaling that and trying to raise four boys and just be of service.
That's awesome. So there's several things that I wanted to cover in the podcast. I wanted to, kind of thank you for being willing to jump on and do this. And I've broken it down into 4 parts because I think that, at least in my brain, it's just easier to follow that way. But number one, I want to start with the death hike from last year. How did you feel about that? Because that was your second year, wasn't it?
Yes. Yep. Last
How
year,
do you-
second year.
How do you feel like the results were from that? How do you feel like you did? And what really motivated you from that leading into this year?
Yeah, last year was a kind of a kick to the shorts in that I trained and we had done a bunch of, I'd done a bunch of more like ultra marathon / marathon training. So it was just super heavy focused on running as opposed to really anything else. And so when I got there and if I'm honest, I kind of got my butt kicked. We were able to make it the 50 miles. It took me 23 and a half hours to get out on the first day. And then we got snowed out, obviously, and did not make it the second day, which if I'm honest, I was kind of happy and sad about. But this year it was more of I knew I needed to do something different. And so we focused really hard on like just building more muscle in the legs for being able to make those climbs, as opposed to doing the running and trying to build up endurance and wind. It was just, last year was grueling, man. We ended up, thank God I had guys like Justin and Christian around me, and they were kind enough to kind of hike out with me, and they had their own problems too, but I know that they had more gas in the tank than I did, and so they were really great about trying to stick it out with the new guy and go at my pace. But man, I'm by the end of that hike last year, it was just I was kind of, I remember falling asleep on my feet at one point and just being really out of it due to lack of sleep and um just not having the right type of training in, not knowing that, right? But and then I screwed up on all fronts last year. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I kind of screwed up on the food portion too, not having enough solid food and trying to bring in as much powder as possible because it was lighter. And so, or I thought it was lighter anyway. And so lots of like Tailwind and Gatorade and gummies and stuff like that. Whereas there was not a whole lot of salty stuff like this year that helped to kind of settle my stomach a little bit better and fill the stomach a little bit better. So yeah, just I kind of screwed up on all fronts last year and yeah, tried to remedy that this year.
So you referenced the training aspect, and you felt like this year you went into the training thinking about it different without going, crazy deep into detail. And you kind of mentioned this a little bit ago, but what do you feel like played such a different role in your training this year compared to last?
Well, I think two things really. One was I was more consistent about the training. So it was like uh, we did this. Melissa and I did a 75 hard program, and so we were really almost religious about sticking to that. So it was two 45-minute workouts every day for 75 days, and I had started kind of training prior to in November, and yeah, so really religious about sticking to those trainings, but it was much, much more like leg focused, like muscle. So it was a lot of, I did an atomic athlete um, workout plan where it was lots of jump squats, jump lunges, regular squats, regular lunges, loaded with the exo pack on my back, bit of tire drags, lots of box step ups, and then a little bit of running, and then some upper body mixed in there as well. But that was, it helped so much. The difference between last year and this year because of that, because of the discipline to work out twice a day, I think, and then the type of working out versus just the running focused type of workout, man, it helped so much. Especially especially on like the inclines and the way out and being able to get my head in a much better spot than it was last year.
That's great. And I want to eventually transition into the hike this year. And so, like, we'll kind of talk about that. That's really one of the parts in this. But the two questions I had. So one is the training program that you're describing, was that the free template that EXO has on their website?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So I will link that in the show notes for anybody that's interested in checking that out. It's a really cool program that Atomic Athlete built, and it sort of progresses through different weeks over a 4-week period. And then if you want to add even higher challenge to that, you can. So you can kind of make it, whatever you want. The second question, or kind of really one of the main purposes of doing this, and something I was personally so inspired by, because, you and I had talked quite a bit through this, was as you were training, you were making really great progress, and you sort of had this sudden, unexpected thing pop up in your life. Will you talk a little bit about kind of the progression in training that was leading into the hike, when you got the news that you had, and then kind of what your initial thoughts were as they pertain to the hike after you got the news?
Yeah, no, so started training back in November and then really hammered the 75 hard. And about 5 weeks before I found out I had testicular cancer, and so I had to go in and it's funny. I mean, not to get too into detail, but I go in thinking we're going to my doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, there's something there. It's not good. I'm concerned about cancer." I'm like, "Okay." So I go to the urologist, and the urologist is like, "Yeah, that's not. It's on a Monday." He's like, "Yeah, that's not right. Come back on Wednesday. We're going to take that out." And in my head, I'm like, all right, okay. I mean, is there any chance that it's not cancer, number one? And he's like, no, it's there's a 99% chance that it's cancer. It's almost never not, when it's like this. And I go, okay. So my next question was like, well, hey doc, I got this hike in like 5 weeks. If I come back in on Wednesday and I have this taken out, you think I can make that hike? And you could see him just like, calculating in his brain. He's like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He goes, yeah, you might make that. And I'm like, okay, cool. He says, but you're gonna have to, at the very least, for 2 solid weeks, do basically nothing. No, nothing in the way of training. And so I was good about that. I didn't do any kind of training for a solid 2 weeks. And if I'm honest, it was probably more like 3 weeks because I was just concerned about breaking myself or springing a leak really before the hike and not being able to go on the hike. I didn't want to pop a stitch and spring a leak. And so I mean, thankfully I've got guys like you and Mark around me I mean, just first of all, the amount of prayers that I had were just incredible. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of people that were praying on me and Melissa and trying to, get this thing squared away, kind of storming heaven on our behalf, which was great. But then I got guys like you that are like, obviously and rightly concerned, like, hey, do you think are you gonna be able to make it, and if you're not, obviously it was no pressure, but it was more like, how's your training going if you are gonna make it, stuff like that. And so I got just such great support from guys like you that are like, you know what, dude, you've basically, and it helped so much in my mental game. It was guys like you who really are in tune with how the body works, going, hey, you've already done most of the hard work that you're going to do. You get 4 weeks out from this thing and you have to stop working out. Most of the muscle that you were going to have is packed on. It didn't make sense to try and jump back into it super heavy and hard 2 weeks before and break something. So I remember like getting your text and you were like, dude, just make sure you show up at the canyon and go full send when you get there. And don't worry about, working out. And I was like, that's exactly what I needed. So that's what I did. I really tried not to worry about, how much more, endurance and muscle could I pack on in the final 2 weeks, or do we go the route of like, hey, I know you want it, but you could end up hurting yourself. And so it was just me trying to find a mental balance with that, but having the support I did from you guys, just being able to go, you know what, you've done everything you could do, show up and just kick tail in the canyon and see what happens, what comes out on the other end.
Well, what surprised me about it was there was never any wait and see or apprehension. I mean, the first, you sent me a message, you said, hey, do you have some time to talk? I had no idea what that meant. I thought it was probably about nutrition. And that's where you kind of broke the news to me and asked us to pray for you, which of course we said that, that we would. At that point, you knew nothing. And you said, if I can move, I will be there. And so I want to sit there for a couple of minutes, but um I have a question in my head of what is in you that made that so important to you for you to say, because I mean a lot of people will hear that and say like it's a hike, it's not that big a deal, just change your plans. But I know that's not true for you. What is it in you that made that trip so important? And then part two to that question is a larger part. Like, what do you think as people or as, whatever, guys, whatever, and women too, what do you think as people makes us get news like that, but still make the decision of look, this was important to me. I'm going to commit to it and go regardless of what this says, unless I'm not medically cleared.
I think that I'm gonna probably go back and have you repeat that last part, but I think the two like main things, being totally truthful with myself, is I kind of have this mindset, and actually the I hate even saying the cancer thing because it makes it sound worse than I think it actually is. I mean, if you had to pick making it any, I guess, more grievous than it actually is, but the thing that it did help to solidify, I had this like mindset of like, well, like I just specifically like in working out. So why do I work out today? And my wife will tell you, we say this all the time, right? why do I work out today? And it's because you might not be able to tomorrow, right? Like, what if you have the flu tomorrow and you didn't do the workout you should have done today, or you didn't do the work in the garage that you should have done today? Um, would I regret it? And probably would regret it. And then cancer kind of hit that like even a little bit harder. Like it never crossed my mind to not go if I was physically able to go, because I may not be able to go next year, right? So you don't know, and it might be not just in the way of cancer, right? But something could happen where, whatever it is, a car wreck, or I got a sick family member or something to where I may not be able to go next year. And so I want to kind of chew that up as as I this year I can, so I want to, right? And so the other very honest answer is, I think in this I was I hate even saying it, but I was selfish in it. And I say that like I'd done all these working out and taken a significant, as you know, a significant amount of time away from the business, and although we try not to affect the family as best we can, it still affects the family and the amount of time that we're able to spend with them while we're trying to ramp up these workouts and stuff like that. And so there's this part of me that's like, you did all of this working out and you built these muscles and you built this endurance, and the selfish part of me was like, I want to see what it can do. I want to see what the body can do. And so if I'm at all able, I'm not missing this, in a very selfish way, just because I was like, man, you worked so hard up until the last 4 weeks to just kind of to quit 4 weeks out just didn't feel good. So it was me being selfish, and then obviously the thought of not being able to do it next year or whatever.
Well, I think
That's
there
kind of
was
what was in my head.
I think there was probably too, you can verify if I'm off here or not, but there was probably a sweet revenge you wanted after last year. I mean, I knew that was a theme that kept coming up in our conversations even while you were training, is because you changed the way that you trained so much, you wanted to see how much different you felt and how much of an improvement that did or didn't have on, your time or your ability to do the canyon or whatever. So I'd imagine that was a little taste of sweet victory in there too that you wanted.
So bad. So I wanted that so bad, man. That like,
Now, I want to go back to this idea of me, like you calling me and telling me that you got this, and me telling you just to send it.
I love it.
Which was partially true, but I knew two things. Number one, I knew that there was no scenario that you couldn't get through there. Because I know you, it may not be true of everyone, but I also had enough confidence in you to know, even if he is absolutely miserable, he'll pull himself out. Number two is just the confidence of everyone in that group. While everyone is kind of competitive with themselves, and it is a very much a individual style of an event, there's not a single person in that group that I know for a fact, if I was stuck in the bottom somewhere, even if they were exhausted, would not come and find me if I needed it, and I know that would be true of you too. So I knew that even if you got there and something did happen, someone's going to walk out of there with you, and so that's what I think gave me the confidence to tell you, you have invested so much work to this point. There's nothing else that you could gain, so to be able to know those two things about you and to be able to tell you, if you get cleared from the doctor, show up, you'll get out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. They might have had to quarter me up, but it have got me out.
Well, we had the packs to do it if we needed to.
Yeah.
I definitely want to dive into just your recap of the canyon this year, but I think that, like, in women's health, thankfully, there's been a significant increase in the amount of light shed on mammograms, breast cancer screenings, and like an importance of women getting themselves checked to try to catch it in the early stages and get it corrected, and like obviously that's true of anyone who listens to this, whether it affects you closely by a spouse or a mom or a sister or something, just the value there. Men aren't as good at this, right? I mean, we feel something where we're like, oh, it's probably just a bruise or whatever. I'm curious, what for guys that might be listening, what did you notice? What drove you to go in? At what point did you feel like, all right, I need to go get this checked out? And kind of as a third part of that, looking back, what advice would you have if there are guys who recognize the early stages of this but just kind of sit on it? What decisions do you wish you'd have made earlier?
Dude, that's such a good question. So I will say it was almost 3 years ago that I had quit my day job to run the business full time, and I had insurance at the day job. And so the part of the like leaving process was like, go get whatever you need to get checked out before you go, because you still have insurance. And so right before I left, I did go in. I was having some discomfort. It was real sensitive in the right testicle. I don't know how specific you want me to get, and I apologize, but if it's of value to anybody, I want them to know. So um, it was real sensitive and somewhat painful. And so I went into my doctor, and he did the exam and couldn't find it. And this is 3 years ago almost. So he's like, yeah, there's nothing, doesn't seem to be anything wrong. And I was at the time, so I carry a firearm concealed, and I was carrying at the appendix, and he's like, well, maybe you just, maybe it's something with the way you're carrying your gun up front at the appendix, and it might be causing pressure and causing pain. So he says, like, basically just switch up your carry position. I'm like, okay. So I did that, and it seemed to help a little bit, but it never really went away. It was still always really sensitive. And I have 4 boys, and so, we roughhouse, and the little one runs and jumps into my arms, and every now and again there's contact made. And so it was just really overly sensitive to the point where I found myself over this last like 3-year period kind of protecting it more and more. And if I'm honest, one day this was like, it was hurting pretty good. And I was taking a shower and just tried to feel around, and it felt like there was a pretty good solid hard spot on it. So after I felt that, I was like, dadgummit, Melissa's right. You need to go and listen to your wife, just go in and get it checked. And, so to your point, I didn't do that right away. And so got to a point where it hurt pretty good one day where it hurt good enough to where I was like, dadgummit, it hurts to stand even. So I made the appointment, went in, doctor kind of looked him in the eye, and he was like, Gabriel, this is not right. Go to the urologist. So I did that. So it was, like you said, it just took too long. It was almost a 3-year period. And so to that end, when they pulled it out and biopsied the tumor, it was the doctor was actually surprised. It was like a really aggressive form that he hasn't seen very often. And so he's like, man, I didn't expect that type of cancer to be in there. And so thinking of that, like, oh man, it's an aggressive form of cancer. It's been sitting there for 3 years because you're a jackwagon and you didn't listen to your wife. Honestly, going forward, like if I didn't listen to her, and it was something that would have become much, much greater to the end that I had ended up, like worst case scenario, if this would have ended up killing me, I never would have forgiven myself for not listening to her and not just going in. Because I kind of would put it on, it would be in my head as though this was your fault. And if you'd have just been the more, I don't know, like compassionate man that would have just gone and got it done when you should have gone and got it done and checked out a second time, maybe you wouldn't have, put your wife and your kids in the position of not having you around. So anyway, all that to say, if there's anything, like if it's sensitive at all, for, any kind of period of time, more than I would say a week, 2 weeks or whatever, if your wife is telling you to go in and get it checked, just eat that pride and go get it checked. Cause again, the thought that, and I say this, I apologize, I should have said this earlier, but that we did do the CT scan and blood work. And so the CT scan came back completely clean, basically from the abdominal, from the lower lungs all the way down was completely clean. There were no other masses, which I'm really thankful for, especially knowing that he said how aggressive this type of cancer was, and then the blood markers came back completely clean as well. So I'm just, I mean, I can only attribute that to God, right? That it was such an aggressive type, but hadn't spread anywhere else. But to the point you were making, like just swallow the pride or whatever it is that's keeping you from the doctor. If it hurts, go in and just get it checked. And is it awkward? Yep, it's awkward, but it is, it's better than the worst case scenario, which is leaving, 4 boys and a wife, by themselves with a business that they don't know how to run and stuff like that. So I know that maybe that's a little deeper than what you wanted, but yeah, I just would say, man, if you're feeling any discomfort or sensitivity or pain at all for any longer than a few days, especially knowing that there's no trauma that's been caused to it, like you get hit by a baseball, okay, that makes sense, I understand, but if it just happens, go square it away quick, fast, and in a hurry, and just be done with it.
It's great. All right. So you got that all taken care of. You had a minor procedure, got it taken care of. Fast forward to the hike. Are you nervous about the fact that you're going into this with really what amounted to, was it 2 or 3 weeks completely off of training at all?
Yeah, it ended up almost 4 weeks to the day of no training. Yes, and I take it back. I did do a couple of real long walks, like I did some with no load. But yeah, so it was almost 4 weeks with nearly no training. Yeah, I was a little nervous about it. Yeah.
All right. So land in Vegas, we make our way over to the Grand Canyon. Day 1 starts. How you feeling in the morning? How do you feel like all of the first day went?
Dude, I slept really well that night, which is weird because the last 2 death hikes I didn't sleep at all. Got up and I just had Kyle in my head going, dude, you're gonna give it everything you have, like just full send and see what happens, right? And you guys, most of the guys are like that anyway. They're like, dude, we're all trying to raise a family. We're all trying to, for the most part, we're all trying to do the absolute best we can. And so when you get there, it's more like just do everything that you can do and see what comes out on the other end. And so that's what I did. Got up, decent night's sleep. Just little tiny things that I didn't do. Like I didn't have any coffee that morning by design, because I didn't want to be spending multiple times, jumping off the trail to go pee and stuff like that. But yeah, the morning of, once we hit the trail, I was feeling really, really pretty darn good. I had a kind of an IT band issue last year where it was just on that descent, just killing my right knee. And this year that was all gone. And I'm not sure if that's because of the lack of running impact training I was doing or what, but I felt 100% better than the year before, on that first morning.
Yeah, I mean, you looked great, because I was coming down the North Rim and you were heading up, and you looked, not only did you look great, but you were way ahead of your time too. So do you feel like in hindsight, that first day, do you feel like all of the training changes that you had made paid off?
100%. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. I was on the north incline, and there were a couple of guys that were coming down, and I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing? And even at the North Rim, I talked to a couple of guys, and they're like, man, this is way harder than last year. And I'm like, this has been so much better than last year. Like, it's not even funny. And my thing was the training, right? My training was better, I think. And that's why I thought it was so much better. But their thing was like, holy cow, it was 95 degrees in the bottom of that canyon. And there are some like 13 to, I don't know, even 15-mile stretches where you don't see shade at all. And it just baked them and baked me too. Compared to last year, we were, it was significantly cooler. I mean, obviously to the point where we got snowed out the second day. So the weather was a big game changer in the way of how people felt once they finally hit the North Rim and those inclines, trying to climb out of it. But for me, the additional training that I'd done, not that it wasn't hot, man, it was hot. It was, golly, it was hot. But the training had kind of, I guess, mitigated some of that in the way of how I felt, and my mental game too, for sure.
All right. So fast forward, you complete day one. What time did you end up getting out that night?
It was 12. I want to say when I hit the north or the south rim, 12:20. That's when I think I hit the north rim, 12:20. And I think we started at about 4, I want to say 4:10 or 4:15, leaving camp at 4:10, I think. And then, yeah, so that's,
So you smashed your time by almost 4 hours from
yeah.
the year prior. You referenced this earlier that you made some changes in nutrition. Like last year, you took mostly tailwind and, not very filling, high carb foods. What were some of the most significant changes in nutrition that you made that you feel like were helpful?
Um, Cheez-Its. Cheez-Its are amazing. I could, man, I could destroy, force myself at the North Rim to eat more than what I wanted to. So when we got to the North Side, they were Green Belly bars. So it's like a really high calorie, dense, like meal bar. They have like almost 700 calories per bar. And so I forced myself to choke down, half of that, which I didn't do last year. And then I think I got real, I guess, queasy last year because I was running a bladder and I had put a packet of or it might have been 2 packets of Tailwind in the bladder when we were on the flat, knowing that we had another probably 12 or 13 miles to go. And so I was like, oh, I'll just sip on this the entire time. And I know you and I talked about it, and that, I don't know if it's just the massive amount of sweetness or what it was, but man, it, it was not the right combination of things, in the way of number one, not being solid food, but just trying to drink as many calories as possible. It made me have a little bit of a nauseous spell last year, whereas this year I made sure to incorporate like the Cheez-Its and the Green Belly bars and piles of like solid foods in the way of like Oreos and Nutty Buddies and Nutter Butters and stuff like that versus just gummy bears and Tailwind and Gatorade last year. Helped a lot to not feel queasy at all. Just learned a ton about it, what not to do from last year to this year.
So you come out at 12:20, get some sleep, wake up the next day. How are you feeling about day two?
I, my feet were pretty well wrecked. Although there were some guys that had it way worse than I did, but I had some pretty solid blisters on both feet, and they were just like, to slip my shoes back on. They were just hot. It felt like they were just hamburger meat. And so I get up and my good buddy Kyle is like, "Hey man, let's let's you jumping back in?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have to go back in." And it was more like I I told myself that feel I would regret not going back in. If I felt like I had more gas in the tank and I didn't go, I would regret it. And I for sure would have. Um so even if I were just going to run to the North Rim and dip a toe in and be like, "Oh, I've made it another 2 miles more than I did last year." Um, that's kind of where my head was, of like, you have to go farther than last year. So we started walking, you and I, and and then you started lying, and that's that's what kind of like just kept me going. Is like, man, and I really really hate to voice any kind of pain or negativity. I hate it, and so I'll just try and maintain as much of a positive attitude as I can. And so I try not to talk about the blisters, but man, my left foot was on fire. And so Kyle, you're like, well, let's just see how you do. Let's just go to the rim and see how you're feeling. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we can do that. You're like, it's like you're trying to sell me a car. You're like, I just take a little drive, just take a little tiny drive and see how the car handles. And I'm like, all right, let's do that. So we hit the rim, and then you're like, hey, you look like you're doing pretty good. And stop me and correct me if this is my recollection and not yours. But you're like, you know what, man, you look good. Let's dump in a little ways and just see how how it feels maybe halfway down. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And so dumped in, and man, did it get hot fast, and my feet are blistering. And I remember at one point bending over and just like my hands are on my knees, and I remember thinking to myself, like, the words were going to escape. In my head, I had already said it. I had said, Kyle, I'm going back. Did I voice that or no? Was that out loud?
No, you never said that, which shocked me because I kept waiting for it the whole way. I was like, he's gonna want to go back at any time because we I kept giving you these little milestones. I was like, oh, like let's just go, to this point. We'll kind of see how you feel. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm thinking we're going the whole way. And we kept getting closer to these little markers, and I'm thinking the whole time, I'm not saying jack when we get there. I'm not going to ask him how he feels when we get to this next little marker. I'm not going to say, oh, here it is. I'm just going to keep moving. And I don't know. I just knew that if I just knew you'd keep going, and part of that's because you're you. I had confidence that you could, and so no, you never voiced a single word about your feet hurting or being hamburger. I mean, we all didn't feel great, we
Right.
all had
Yeah.
something we were nursing to some degree. So I knew that. I mean, I knew everybody in the canyon at that point had something. But you didn't, you were never like, okay, okay, that's the only thing that I remember was I said, well, let's give ourselves a 2 o'clock turnaround time. And you're like, well, I think you said something like, well, I might do noon or 10. At that point, it's 9. I'm like, I'd even watch my watch. And, when 10 came, I was like, I'm not saying anything if he's not. So I'm going to keep going. And, but you never voiced anything.
You said noon turnaround time for the record. And I remember looking at my phone, and it happened to be dead on noon, and we were at the bridge crossing the river at noon, and I was like, stinking Kyle, he did it. He got me. He got me down into the stinking canyon again, which is exactly what I needed, dude. I will say, and I mean this, like, this is a testament to men needing other men to kind of sharpen them up. I would not have gone back to Phantom Ranch if it wasn't for you being there and kind of prodding me gently. Um, I just wouldn't have. If I was there by myself, like the night before, no problem, right? Climbing out of the canyon by myself, I get to pray a little bit. I'm just like, I knew this was. I had felt this same feeling last year. I was fine, but the dump back in, I just I would not have gone as far if it wasn't for you. And so it was really, really cool. Said, um, man, it still rings in my head. You told me, you said, Gabe, when we get a rim, you will never regret doing this. And I was like, dadgummit, Kyle, you're freaking right. And it was just one of those things. It was like, but but the opposite of that is if you quit before you to the top, you're gonna regret it. I know that because I did it last year, right? So man, those words of you, just number one, kind of prodding me along the way, and then number two is like, dude, you're never gonna regret this. Like, you're not gonna die. Man up and feel the feeling of being accomplished when you hit to the top. And so it was. I don't know if I even told you that, but those words helped so much on the way to, quote, completing at least the amount that we did complete. Now, we didn't get the full 100 miles in, but man, I'm telling you right now, if I wouldn't have had you saying those things and being the kind of guy that you are, I would not have gone anywhere near as far as I did. So very, very thankful to you. And it's, again, a learning experience about the kind of people you put around yourself, or that, um, that God puts around you, whatever it is. But man, I would not have had 70 miles had I not had you kind of prod me along.
Well, I think you're probably giving me more credit than I deserve, but I love what it says in the Bible about iron sharpening iron, and a lot of people spend a lot of time alone on that trail. In fact, like most of my first day coming back out, once you hit the bridge, was alone. You got 4 or 5 hours just climbing in the dark, and that's tough. Like it's not only mentally tough, it's doable, but it's not nearly as enjoyable as being with someone, and it just enhances, like, it just makes your experience a lot better, right? I mean, and that going into it, you're gonna be alone a lot, and you're not just there to, as silly as it sounds, enjoy it, but you're also there to really challenge yourself. But yeah, I mean, it was a mutually beneficial thing in the sense of, it kept me in high spirits, and I really, really, really enjoyed that second day. So thanks for letting me lie to you and sell you a used car in the canyon.
It was so great. And I think I know that by the time we hit the bottom, you had way more gas in the tank than you let on. And I think you even asked like, "Hey, you want to keep going?" And I was like, I don't think I swore, but I was like, "Heck no, I'm not, I'm good. I'm good right here. I'm happy with the performance. We cut, 3 hours, 3.5 hours off of last year, and I'm an extra 20 miles in. I'm happy with this right now." And I know you were like, I wouldn't say chomping at the bit, but I know you had a Manzanita hike in you, and you, for the sake of just being able to hang out with me and uh, hike out with myself and Will, you didn't do that, which was really cool. I agree with you. It was much more enjoyable having some guys around you that you can, kind of just be with, even if you're not talking a whole lot. Just be with guys that are doing, feeling the same thing as what you're feeling, going through the hard stuff. So
Yeah. I have struggled to like talk about this because we kind of live in a culture where, you know, it's like it's just very much do as much as you can and you don't quit. And to a lot of people on paper, it's going to seem like, oh, well, you quit short. But I also think that like I think as I've gotten older, life experiences and losing my dad and just knowing at the end of the day what really matters to me, even whether I had it in me or not, whether I'd have made it or not, whether whatever wasn't the point to me. And to me, it was like, I'm going to be flexible in my overall goal because I can promise you that I'm going to remember and enjoy and would rather hike out with Will and hike out with Gabriel and like just enjoy the day. I mean, you'd been there 2 years and I feel like I really had never even seen the canyon. And so that to me, as opposed to purely racking up miles that I can make one social media
mhm.
post about, just meant so much more to me and my own personal values that it really wasn't a question to me of whether I could. I knew it would have been solo. I would have went the entire way to Manzanita back by myself, hiking out in the dark again by myself, which is fine. I mean, I've gone on, hunted in the dark by myself, I've trained in the dark by myself. I'm used to that. But I also felt like, man, when I'm on that plane, I would love to have some good memories too, and to me, it wasn't a perception at all of like quitting. It was, man, I'd rather enjoy this with these guys. And so I loved it, man. Like I said, it was very much mutually beneficial in the sense of you provided as much to me as you're saying that I provided to you. And I appreciate your friendship. And I mean, I knew that even going into this was last year because of all the different conundrums that happened. We didn't get to spend a single mile on the trail together. And those things matter to me in life experiences. And I wanted to cover something with you. And we didn't have the chance at all on day one, just because of the separation, which wasn't even that much between us. But you never really know where a guy's at on the trail in relation to you unless you pass him. You don't know if he's 9 hours back or two. Otherwise, you might wait at one of the markers. But anyway, the feeling was it was the same. Last question
Okay.
for you. And you had kind of asked this to everyone that was there. So now I'm going to ask you, why do you do the death hikes?
I think it's just what we kind of talked about already, which is I might not be able to tomorrow. That's really the biggest thing. And I say that like I know a couple of guys, like I know a guy that doesn't have legs. He's a bunch of surgeries that he had. I know another guy that's paralyzed from the waist down, just super nice guys. But matter of fact, I'd asked Anthony Alberti about it when we were sitting at camp, and he voiced it so well. He said it almost with the ability that we have and the tools like the legs and the things that we've been given, it's almost sinful not to use them. And I was like, golly, that's a great way of looking at it. Thinking about the number of people who would absolutely kill to give to just be able to I mean walk alone, let alone go 70 miles into a canyon. It was that really resonated with me. It's almost sinful not to use the abilities that you've been blessed with. Um, and then the fact that like, who knows, right? Who knows if I'll be able to do it again tomorrow, or next year or whenever. And so I think that's kind of the thing. I have the ability, and because I have the ability, I should do it as long as it's rightly ordered, right? As long as I'm not taking too much time away from the family, too much time away from the business. A rightly ordered really, really hard thing to do, um, at least for me, should be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes great sense, and it's a great answer. Well, thank you very much for taking the time away from the business and the family to jump on here and share your story, to be so open and honest, to give great advice, to thank you for your friendship. Thank you for everything, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I will link everything Ivory Holsters related in the show notes so that for folks that are interested in everything that you guys make and what you do, they can check that out or get in contact with you if they need to. And there'll be a place there that
I
they can do
appreciate it,
that.
brother. Hey, I gotta ask you the same thing. I want to hear your why.
I think that all of us probably have a similar answer along what you had said. And then for me, I think it's, if I'm 100% honest, it's probably two things. Number one, my default is to do whatever is the most easy for me to do in any given situation, whether that's in marriage, whether that's with my kids, whether that's in the business, whether that's in my life or my health or whatever. I'm always going to be wired to take the easy way out. For me, what I've realized in the years that I've done this, in the years that I've lost weight, in the years that I've started exercising, between 15, 20 years ago or whatever, is that I need regular exposure to where I am having to force myself to choose the hard thing, deliberately choosing whatever is the hardest but the best scenario in those situations, right? So I'm getting up and doing the dishes rather than sitting on the couch. I'm playing with my kids rather than zoning out on my phone. I'm going to do my workout even though I have no desire to go do it. I'm going to the Grand Canyon even though it'd be easier not to. For me, I found that I have to force myself to go make these decisions so that I just stay in that natural thought process of don't take the easy way out because it's easy. Do the best thing that's the best in those given situations. And this just puts something on the calendar that forces me to do it. In a lot of ways, it's probably a cop out because I know that if I don't do it throughout the year, training for it and making tough decisions, then I'm going to fall apart whenever it comes time to it. So just a huge, huge thank you and shout out to everybody in the Death Hike, Steve at EXO, and everyone who puts it together for providing the opportunity to us. Second is exactly that. I've never been in the military. I've never been in law enforcement. I've never been in fire. I've never even had a brother. I've heard guys um, in every one of those roles talk about brotherhoods and how special they are. I can only imagine that they are a small fraction of what I feel with the guys that are a part of that group, that
Right.
Death Hike. And, we've all gotten to know each other's spouses and families so well now. So I would even say the families that it would have to be something pretty major for me to miss those just because I enjoy that group so much, and being a part of that. It is for me, I wish for every person, but especially every man, to have something like that. And I know that they don't. It's special. It really is. It's hard to describe, but for me, I wouldn't miss it for anything. I
Yeah.
really wouldn't, just because it's being with all of those men in that group. And like I said, now we've all gotten to know each other's families and kids really well that it almost feels like you're getting together with brothers. And yeah, I just
Yeah.
wouldn't miss it.
I love it. I totally agree with you. One more, last one. I'm sorry. I don't mean to drag it on.
No, no, dude, this is
What
fire.
what does Lindsay think about it? So I have this realm of like wives that go, you're completely bat crap crazy, all the way down to like, oh my gosh, you're an absolute amazing human being. And there's I'm sure it varies in between. Where does Lindsay stand on that scale? What does she think about this
That's a
stuff?
good question. Yeah, Lindsay is she is not just tolerant of it, she is wildly supportive of it because of both of the elements that I just said. She sees what it does in me, and that kind of, I think, forces me in the direction to be what I want to be rather than what's easy to be. She sees what it does for me to be around that whole group. And, when I come home from something like that, I think she sees in me like there's just this, I really love adventure, no matter what that looks like, how hard it is or anything. I just love adventure. She sees what that does for me. So she is very
Mhm.
supportive of it. Now, with that said, this will probably make you laugh. She is unimpressed by anything that I do physically. She's like, "Oh, okay, way to go, good job." Like she congratulates me, but she's not like, "Oh my gosh, you are so amazing." Not that I
Sure.
expect that at all. And frankly, it's probably good that she's like that. She's like, I mean, I could probably walk across the U.S. and she's like, "Wow, that was really
Yeah, nice
long. Good
work.
job. What do you think we're gonna do for dinner tonight? Are you hungry
I
or?"
love it.
So death hikes, like there's the time that you're gone, which, sometimes it's just a weekend because it's in Idaho. Other times it's, several days where you're traveling. It's the training, man. I mean, you try your best to not take away from time with the family or from work or from all of these other things. But, there's times where you're up at 3, 4 in the morning, you start training, you don't get home till 8 or 10 a.m. And then you've got, you're kind of wiped, but the kids want to play like they haven't been training. So it can be a pretty, it can be a little bit of I don't want to say a drain on the family because I try very hard to not ever make it feel like that to them and only train during the times that they've got something
Mhm.
going on. But it's a test of endurance, and I don't just mean the event itself. And so, a huge, huge shout out to all of the spouses and kids who, you know, for lack of a better word, champion their spouses to go
For
do
sure.
stuff like
Yeah,
this.
that's awesome, man.
What's Melissa say? She's impressed with you. I've heard her talk about you. You're like Greek mythology to her.
She's that way, man. She is incredible. She's so yeah. She's just so much more than I deserve for sure. I remember so two things. One, when we hit the doctor and he's like, yeah, it's cancer and we need to have it removed. And she's sitting in the room with me, obviously way more worried than I was. And I started asking the doctor about the. I saw that he was wearing running shoes. I'm like, oh, this guy will get it. He'll understand it. So I see, I was like, oh, you're a runner. He says, anyway, it went down that road and she's in the back, like shaking her head, like, there's no way you're going on this hike. And not that she would prohibit it, but she just thought that the doctor was going to be like, no, you're not. This is much more important than you going on a hike. And so when, when I asked him if I'd be able to make the hike, I think she was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then he goes, no doing anything for 2 weeks. And I think you can make that. And I know in her head, she was just like, you dirty, like, I- like, why do you feel the need to have to do this? So that's one. The other one was she does think exactly what you say. I'm like wholly undeserved of it, but man, she just thinks I'm so great. We trained last year. I ended up doing this. It's called the Pack Out Challenge for one of the archery shoots here in Colorado, and it was 100 and I think it was 125 pounds. And you're supposed to ruck it a mile, and I was a team carry. And anyway, so I say this to say that like the wives don't, for the most part, they don't get to see the end result of all this training like for the most part, very rarely. I would imagine Lindsay has not been in a scenario where she gets to see like you built yourself into a Ferrari and then you get to go actually run this Ferrari. She probably doesn't get to see that very often. Well, Melissa got to kind of see I'd thrown this pack of 125 pounds on. And although I'm the slowest guy in the death hike group, um, at the time, we were doing it. I was with a buddy of mine, and I got up, and she was kind of. I just started trucking, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" Like she got to actually see kind of the fruit of all the training that I'd been doing, and she's so cute, dude. She doesn't swear like at all, but she goes, "You're a badass." And I wasn't sure like if she was just saying that because like she was trying to pump me up for this event that I'm doing, or if she actually meant it. But the whole time she's like, I can't believe I'm so impressed with you. It was just great, man. like you said, a champion for me in this. And then same thing, like when you get back home, like you're still a dad, bud. Don't forget, you're still just you're just a man. And she doesn't say it like that, but it's like, you know, get your butt downstairs and cook breakfast for your boys, right? Stuff like that. And so it's just very, very real in that she's a champion when she knows I need it, and then she's also just like, all right, now go clean the bathroom, right? Like brings me back down to earth when I start thinking I'm you know, a little bit, I get a little bit of an elevated opinion of myself, and she's like, no, pal, go do the stuff you're supposed to do. So it's, yeah, that's where she is.
Yeah, thank God for great women. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate Gabriel joining, and we will be back again with part 2 of our recount from the death hike this year. And on that episode, it's going to be Mark and I, and we will talk through everything from training and how dramatically different that looked for both of this year, and why it's probably changed our philosophy on training moving forward for future death hikes, as well as anything that's outside the realm of just normal general fitness that we both try to stay in. We'll talk about gear lists, food, and then full trip reports from our trip to the Grand Canyon this year. That'll be headed out here in the next episode here in just a couple of weeks. We appreciate you guys listening and are always interested in the questions that you have. So you can send those to us at info@v2pnutrition.com. and we will get them answered on our next Q&A segments. Don't forget to check out the show link notes if you've got anything that you're interested in checking out further that Gabriel had mentioned, or any of the resources that we put out. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you again here in a couple of short weeks. Have a great week, everyone.